Hi, everyone. My name's Nate Holt. I'm a principal scientist, biostatistician, and the population health impact modeling team lead at Jewel Labs. I'm presenting some joint work today that I've done with my colleagues, Ryan Black, Nicholas Goldenson, Michael Oldham, all from Jewel, and then our colleague from Penny Associates, Saul Schiffman. The title of my talk today is Biomarkers of Exposure Among Adult Exclusive Smokers, Dual Users, Exclusive ENDS Users, and past 30-day non-users in the PATH study Wave 5, 2018 to 2019. The analysis was funded by Jewel Labs. By way of background, the PATH study is a nationally representative longitudinal cohort study. Thank you. And the PATH study is sponsored by the US FDA and National Institutes of Health. Beginning with Wave 1 in the 2013 to 2014 time period, the study is administered on approximately an annual cadence. The PATH study includes interview and biospecimen collection components, and Wave 5 is the most recently available wave for which we have both interview data and biospecimen data. The data are released in tranches, and so what we're going to see today is an incomplete look at the Wave 5 data. We don't yet have TSNA or PAH data, but we'll get there. We use the term biomarker of exposure, abbreviated BOE, to describe toxicants or metabolites of toxicants that are used to quantify exposure to the harmful and potentially harmful constituents of tobacco products and tobacco smoke. BOEs may be measured in urine and blood samples, and in the PATH study, urine specimens are analyzed for BOE concentration. As I mentioned, the data are released in tranches, and among the currently available BOEs for Wave 5, as you can see in this table, the corresponding HPHCs may be organized by disease type or affected system. And so today I'll be presenting about the carcinogenic BOEs that you see here. So we have metals, metabolites of volatile organic compounds. We also have respiratory toxicants, reproductive and developmental toxicants, cardiovascular toxicants, and then, of course, we're also looking at nicotine, which is addictive. There's a rich body of literature that supports the hypothesis that users of electronic nicotine delivery systems, ENDS, are exposed to lower levels of HPHCs than smokers, as are dual users that significantly reduce their daily cigarette consumption, or CPD, by at least 50%. Cross-sectional and longitudinal studies of PATH thus far have only considered the first two waves, Wave 1 and Wave 2, in the 2013 to 2015 time period. Cross-sectionally, ENDS users have significantly lower levels than smokers of many BOEs, and these results have actually been corroborated in observational cross-sectional studies. Longitudinal studies have found that smokers that switch to exclusive ENDS use significantly reduce their exposure to HPHCs, as do dual users as do smokers that switch to dual use and significantly reduce their CPD. Again, we see these results corroborated in short-term randomized controlled trials. All right. So the objective of our analysis was to assess potential differences in average BOE levels among adult 21 and up exclusive smokers, dual users, exclusive ENDS users, and past 30-day non-users of tobacco products in the 2018-2019 time period. The analysis domain that we considered had nearly 3,500 subjects. As you can see, we had 1,341 current exclusive smokers, 115 dual users, 151 exclusive ENDS users, and 1,846 past 30-day non-users. In this analysis, we excluded users of any other past 30-day users of any other tobacco, nicotine, or marijuana product. So we believe we're looking at a relatively clean slice of the data here. And I will get into this a little bit, but the dual users are quite heterogeneous. I was unable to get the results in time to present them to you all today. I'd be happy to unpack these results with you, in a sidebar later today, though. Among the urinary BOE endpoints that we consider, we're looking at two total nicotine equivalence measures, total nicotine equivalence 2 and total nicotine equivalence 6. Then we're looking at all 3 metals that are currently available in the path data, as well as all 14 metabolites of volatile organic compounds that are currently available in the path data. So we've adjusted the biomarker measurements for urinary creatinine, and today I'm reporting the weighted geometric mean creatinine-adjusted biomarker concentrations and the corresponding 95% confidence intervals. And we've illustrated these in charts on the following slides. I did the analysis in SAS. The data were weighted to account for the complex survey design structure of the PATH study. We used the balanced repeated replication method to estimate variance with phase factor set at 0.3. So we compared each mean, or rather each geometric mean. Please excuse me if I'm a little loose calling them levels or means and not saying geometric mean the whole time. But we compared each mean to the mean of the smoker group, and statistical significance for those comparisons are denoted with asterisks. We also compared the ends use group to the past 30-day non-use group. Means that were not statistically significantly different are denoted with a hash sign. So the analysis included 19 biomarkers of exposure, and levels of the 2 nicotine equivalence BOEs, total nicotine equivalence BOEs, as you see here, the average levels were quite similar in the smokers, who are the red bar, the dual users, the orange, the exclusive ends users, the green, and those were all different, and for the smokers and past 30-day non-users, statistically significantly so. And so we feel fairly confident that our past 30-day non-use group are actually individuals that do not use tobacco. Among the 3 metals that are currently available in the path data, we have cadmium, lead, and uranium. We found that ends users had significantly lower levels than smokers of all 3 metals. We also found that there was no statistically significant difference between the average levels in the exclusive ends users and the past 30-day non-users. The volatile organic compounds, as I showed you in a table in an earlier slide, several are carcinogenic as well as some sort of respiratory, cardiovascular, or reproductive or developmental toxicant. And so here we're looking at 6 of the metabolites of VOCMs, or of VOCs rather, that are carcinogenic. And as you'll see, for 5 of the 6, there's no significant difference in the average levels between the exclusive ends users and the past 30-day non-users. Furthermore, the exclusive ends users had significantly lower levels of all these HPHCs than did the current smokers. These are several of the other VOCs, and so, or metabolites, I should say, of the VOCs. And so these are metabolites, or rather, these represent HPHCs that are respiratory, cardiovascular, and reproductive and developmental toxicants. Again, we see that levels are significantly lower in ends users in comparison to smokers, and for half of them, there's no significant difference between the past 30-day non-users and the exclusive ends users. And now you've seen all but one of the charts representing the BOEs in the PATH study Wave 5 data that are currently available. The one that I haven't shown you is PMA, the biomarker for benzene. The reason is that there's no significant difference between the smokers and the past 30-day non-users for benzene, so we found that to be an uninformative biomarker in our study. So in summary, we find that exclusive ends users they maintain a nicotine level similar or comparable to cigarette smokers on average. However, for all the non-nicotine BOEs, excluding PMA, the biomarker for benzene, we found that levels were significantly lower in exclusive ends users in comparison to cigarette smokers. And for many of them, levels were not significantly different between the ends users and the past 30-day non-users. For dual users, as I mentioned, they're a rather heterogeneous group, as you could get the sense of looking at the margin of error for those, the confidence limits. And I'd be happy, as I mentioned, to show you our deep dive on that. However, nonetheless, the dual users did have significantly lower levels for about a third of the non-nicotine BOEs. One thing that we did in this study that you don't often find in RCTs or in observational cross-sectional studies is we included the past 30-day non-use group. We think that's important because with the exception of nicotine, you notice that the BOE levels in the past 30-day non-users were never zero. I think that's an important point to make when folks are, say, talking about percentage reductions in BOE levels. We're not trying to get to zero. There's probably going to be some residual environmental exposure there. And so I just want to conclude by saying that ENDS use is associated with significantly lower exposure to non-nicotine HPHCs than cigarette smoking. And as I mentioned, we use the PATH study data, so I'd like to source the data. We're grateful to FDA and the National Institutes of Health for making these data available to us and to other researchers. These data are free. I encourage you to go dive in and take a look at them yourself. There's an application process to access the biomarker restricted use files. Working in the industry, I would say everybody there is very professional. They're courteous. I've had great working relationships with them in accessing these data and using them, so I would encourage you all to do the same. Thank you.